The gun was already pressed against Adrian Voss's temple when Lena Carter walked into his hospital room with the marriage contract in her shaking hands. She'd expected many things when she agreed to this insane deal: wealth, danger, maybe even death. But not this. Not watching her soon-to-be husband's bodyguard debate whether to shoot him before the ceremony could take place. "Put it down, Marcus," Adrian said, his voice steady despite the barrel against his skull. "I'm getting married tomorrow. Try not to make my bride a widow before she's even a wife." Viewer engagement. Before we dive into this story, if you're already hooked by what happens next, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far Lena and Adrian's story travels. Now, let's go back to where this nightmare actually began. 3 days earlier, Lena had been a completely different person. Not better, not worse, just unbroken. She stood in the hallway of St. Catherine's Medical Center, staring at numbers on a paper that might as well have been a death sentence. $847,000. That's what it cost to save someone's life, apparently. Her grandmother's life, specifically. Eleanor Carter, 72 years old, former elementary school teacher, current resident of Room 4B, slowly dying from a heart condition that had a name Lena couldn't pronounce and a cure she couldn't afford. "Miss Carter?" The hospital administrator's voice was professionally sympathetic, which somehow made it worse. "I understand this is difficult, but we need to discuss payment options." Payment options. As if Lena had options. As if her checking account balance of $1,247. 83 could be stretched into nearly $1 million through sheer force of will and creative budgeting. "I need more time," Lena said, hating how small her voice sounded. "Your grandmother needs surgery within the week. After that—" The administrator didn't finish. She didn't have to. Lena nodded mechanically and walked back toward Room 4B, where her grandmother sat propped up against pillows, oxygen tubes in her nose. Reading a romance novel like this was just another Tuesday. "You look terrible, sweetheart," Eleanor said without looking up from her book. "Did they give you the number?" "Gran, don't, I'm old, not stupid. I know what hospitals cost." Eleanor finally lowered her book, and Lena saw something in her grandmother's eyes that made her chest hurt. Acceptance. "Maybe it's just my time." "Don't say that." Lena sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to disturb the IV lines. "I'll figure something out." "Lena, baby, there's nothing to figure out. You're 26 years old with student loans from that nursing degree you had to quit to take care of me. You work 2 jobs already. Where exactly are you going to find that kind of money? Rob a bank?" The joke fell flat because they both knew it wasn't really a joke. Lena had actually Googled how to rob a bank at 2 in the morning the night before. Not seriously. Not really. But desperate enough that the search history sat on her phone like evidence of how far she'd already fallen. "I'm not letting you die because I'm broke," Lena said. "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how this works, sweetheart." That's how it's always worked. Lena wanted to argue, but her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, probably another debt collector, but something made her swipe to accept. "Lena Carter?" A woman's voice, smooth and professional. "Who's asking?" "My name is Victoria Chen. I represent someone who may have a solution to your current financial situation. Are you somewhere we can talk privately?" Every instinct Lena had screamed scam. "How do you know about my financial situation?" "I know you need $847,000 by the end of this week. I know you have $1,247.83 in your checking account. I know you work at Morrison's Diner and do overnight shifts at a warehouse. And I know that 15 minutes ago, you asked the hospital administrator for more time you don't have." The blood drained from Lena's face. "Are you a loan shark? Because I can't—" "Nothing so crude. I'm offering you legitimate employment, $1 million for 6 months of work. Interested?" Lena looked at her grandmother, who had gone back to her book, pretending not to listen. "What kind of work?" "The kind we discuss in person. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hospital. Carmen's. I'll be in the back corner booth in 20 minutes. Come alone or don't come at all." The line went dead. Lena stared at her phone like it might suddenly make sense. $1 million, 6 months. No job on earth paid like that unless it was illegal, immoral, or likely to get her killed. Possibly all three. Go, her grandmother said quietly. Gran, this is obviously a chance. Maybe your only one. Eleanor set down her book and took Lena's hand, her grip weaker than it used to be. I've watched you sacrifice everything for me for 3 years. Your degree, your future, your life. If there's even a chance this is real, you owe it to yourself to find out. And if it's dangerous? Eleanor smiled sadly. Baby, you're already in danger. We both are. At least this way you might have something to show for it. Tut. Carmen's coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and old pastries. It was the kind of place that survived on location rather than quality. Close enough to the hospital that desperate people would pay $5 for terrible coffee just to have somewhere to fall apart in semi-privacy. Victoria Chen sat in the back corner booth exactly as promised. She was probably 40, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than Lena made in 6 months, and she looked completely out of place among the exhausted medical residents and crying families. Lena Carter, Victoria gestured to the seat across from her. Not a question. You're punctual, that's good. My employer values punctuality. Who's your employer? Lena sat down but didn't relax. And how do you know everything about my bank account? All will be explained. First, I need you to sign this. Victoria slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It's a non-disclosure agreement. Whatever I tell you in the next 10 minutes stays confidential, regardless of whether you accept the position. You want me to sign something before you even tell me what the job is? Yes. Because if you say no, my employer's privacy is still protected. If you say yes, we'll have much more detailed contracts to review. This is just the beginning. Lena picked up the paper. It was dense with legal language she didn't fully understand, but the core message was clear. Talk about this meeting to anyone, and you'll be sued into oblivion. She should walk away. Every reasonable bone in her body knew that, but reasonable people didn't watch their grandmothers die because they couldn't afford to save them. Lena signed. Victoria smiled for the first time, and it didn't reach her eyes. Excellent. Now, let me tell you about Adrian Voss. The name meant nothing to Lena, and her face must have shown it. You don't follow the news much, do you? Victoria pulled out a tablet and brought up a photo. Adrian Voss, 34 years old, businessman, philanthropist, and according to the FBI, though they've never managed to prove it, one of the most powerful organized crime figures on the East Coast. The man in the photo looked like he'd been carved from marble and money. Sharp jaw, cold eyes, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or movie screens. Rich, powerful, dangerous. Everything Lena's world wasn't. What does this have to do with me? 6 weeks ago, Mr. Voss was the victim of an attempted assassination. He survived, but the attack left him with significant injuries. He's currently recovering in a private facility, but his condition has created complications within his organization. There are people who see his temporary weakness as an opportunity, people who need to be reminded that Mr. Voss is still very much in control. Okay, Lena said slowly, still not seeing how I fit in. Victoria leaned forward. Mr. Voss needs a wife, someone who can stand beside him, present a united front, convince his enemies that he's stable and secure. Someone who can play the role convincingly for 6 months while he fully recovers. After that, you'll quietly divorce, take your payment, and disappear back into your normal life. The words hit Lena like a truck. You want me to marry a crime boss. I want you to marry a businessman who needs to project strength. You'll live in his home, attend necessary social functions, and maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. In exchange, you'll receive $1 million, half deposited into an account of your choosing immediately upon signing, the remainder when the 6 months conclude. This is insane. This is pragmatic. Mr. Voss needs someone without connections to his world, someone he can trust not to have ulterior motives, someone who needs money badly enough to agree but isn't desperate enough to be stupid about it. You fit the profile perfectly. How do you even know about me? Mr. Voss has people who find people. When we explained what we needed, your name came up. Young, intelligent, desperate, but not destructive. No criminal record, no complicated family beyond your grandmother. Exactly what we're looking for. Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. Let me get this straight. You want me to marry a man I've never met, who's apparently a criminal, recovering from being shot. Stabbed, actually, multiple times. Great, stabbed. You want me to marry him, live with him, lie to everyone for 6 months, and then what? Hope he actually pays me and lets me walk away? Do you understand how completely batshit that sounds? I understand you have 3 days to save your grandmother's life and no other way to do it. Victoria's voice was gentle, but the words cut deep. I also understand that Mr. Voss is many things, but he honors his contracts. You'll be protected, compensated, and released exactly as promised. You have my word. The word of a woman I met 20 minutes ago who works for a crime boss. The word of someone who's offering you exactly what you need. Victoria slid another paper across the table. This one was thicker, stapled, covered in tiny print. The actual contract. Take it home. Read it. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, we move on to someone else. And you watch your grandmother die knowing you had a choice. It was the cruelest thing anyone had ever said to Lena, made worse by the fact that it was completely true. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in her grandmother's hospital room in the uncomfortable fold-out chair that smelled like disinfectant and other people's grief, reading the contract by the light of her phone. It was thorough, terrifyingly thorough. 57 pages of legal language that covered everything from public appearance requirements to confidentiality clauses to what would happen if either party tried to terminate early. There were rules about physical contact, permitted but not required, communication, filtered through designated intermediaries, and even pregnancy, prohibited, with specific contraception requirements outlined in uncomfortable detail. The money clause was simple: $500,000 deposited within 24 hours of signing. $500,000 upon successful completion of the 6-month term. All medical care covered. All living expenses covered. A separate $100,000 discretionary fund for clothing and personal needs. It was more money than Lena had ever imagined having. Enough to save her grandmother and still have a future after. Enough to finish her nursing degree. Enough to stop drowning. All she had to do was marry a stranger. A dangerous stranger. A man who'd been stabbed multiple times by people who wanted him dead. You're still here. Eleanor's voice was quiet in the darkness. Thought you had work. Called in sick. Lena set down her phone. Gran, if you could have any amount of money, what would you do with it? That's a dangerous question at 3 a.m. Humor me. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. I'd get the surgery. Get better. Watch you finish that nursing degree you gave up for me. Maybe live long enough to see you married for real, not because some old woman guilt-tripped you into it. I didn't. Yes, you did. And I love you for it. But baby, you can't sacrifice your whole life for mine. I've already lived most of mine. You've barely started. Lena felt tears on her face and angrily wiped them away. What if I could get the money? All of it. Enough for your surgery and more. But there was a catch. A big catch. Would you want me to take it? Depends on the catch. The kind that might ruin my life. Or save it. I honestly don't know which. Eleanor reached out and Lena took her hand. Her grandmother's skin was paper thin, spotted with age and IV bruises. You know what I've learned in 72 years? There's no such thing as a free miracle. Everything good comes with a cost. Question isn't whether there's a catch. There's always a catch. Question is whether you can live with it. How do I know? You don't. You just decide which regret you can live with better, trying and failing or never trying at all. Lena looked at the contract on her phone screen, 57 pages that would change everything. I need to tell you something, Lena said quietly, and you need to promise not to freak out. 22 hours later, Lena stood outside a building that looked like it was trying to intimidate people just by existing. Glass and steel, 30 stories of wealth and power in the financial district. The kind of place where security guards wore better suits than most people wore to weddings. The kind of place where Adrian Voss apparently kept an office, even though, according to Victoria, he was currently recovering in a private facility. Lena's phone buzzed. Victoria, penthouse level. Security is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like falling upward. Lena watched the numbers climb, each floor taking her further from the life she knew. She'd signed the contract that morning, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen. Victoria had smiled, made a phone call, And within 6 hours, $500,000 had appeared in a bank account Lena didn't even know existed until Victoria gave her the login information. $500,000. She transferred it immediately to the hospital. Her grandmother's surgery was scheduled for the next day. Now all Lena had to do was meet her future husband and somehow survive the next 6 months. The elevator doors opened onto a space that looked more like a luxury apartment than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than cars. And standing in the center of it all, a man who looked nothing like his photo. Adrian Voss was alive, but barely. He stood with the help of a cane, his left side clearly damaged. His face was harder than in the picture, carved with pain and something that looked like barely controlled rage. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw, fresh enough that the edges were still pink. He looked at Lena like she was a problem he was trying to solve. "You're shorter than I expected," he said. His voice was rough, like he'd been screaming or stabbed in the lung. "And younger." "You're more stabbed than I expected," Lena shot back before she could stop herself. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or just surprise that she'd talked back. "Victoria said you were direct. I appreciate that. I don't have time for people who waste my time with pleasantries." "Good, because I don't have any pleasantries for you." Adrian moved toward a chair, each step looking like it cost him. Lena fought the instinct to help. The contract had been very clear about boundaries. He sat down carefully, his jaw tight. "You signed the contract." "I needed the money." "Obviously. And now you're here, which means you're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet." Option 3. Very desperate. Desperation makes people unpredictable. Unpredictable people are dangerous. Lena crossed her arms. "You're the one who sent someone to find a desperate person to marry you. If you wanted predictable, you should have hired an actress. Actresses lie for a living. I need someone who will be honest, at least with me. Can you do that?" "Depends, can you?" Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It sounded painful, and he pressed a hand to his side. "Victoria warned me you had a mouth on you, said it might be a problem. Is it?" "I don't know yet." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. We need to establish ground rules before this goes any further." Lena sat, perched on the edge of the chair like she might need to run. The contract was 57 pages of ground rules. The contract covers legalities. I'm talking about the reality of living together. You need to understand what you're walking into. I'm walking into a house with a crime boss who has enemies who stab people. I think I get the picture. "You don't." Adrian's voice went cold. "You have no idea what my world looks like. You think you've signed up for 6 months of playing pretend, attending some parties, wearing nice dresses. That's not what this is. People will try to hurt you to get to me. People will try to use you to find weaknesses. Every word you say, every move you make will be watched and analyzed. You'll be a target the moment you walk into my home." "You're really selling this," Lena said dryly. "I'm not selling anything. I'm telling you the truth. You still have a choice. The money for your grandmother's surgery has been paid. You could walk away right now, forfeit the second half of the payment, and go back to your life." Lena thought about her life. 2 jobs, crushing debt, no future beyond survival. "And my grandmother?" "The surgery payment is non-refundable. I keep my word, even when other people don't keep theirs." It would have been noble if it didn't sound like a threat. Lena met his eyes, cold, calculating, the eyes of someone who'd done things she probably didn't want to know about. "I'm not walking away." "Why not?" "You have what you needed." "Because I need more than just one surgery. I need to not be drowning anymore. I need a chance at something better. And because—" She hesitated, then pushed forward. "Because I don't break my word either. I signed that contract, which means I'm yours for 6 months. That's the deal." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. "I'm not sure you understand what you just said." "I said I'm keeping my word." "You said you're mine." He leaned forward slightly, ignoring the obvious pain it caused. "That's different. That means when people come after me, and they will, they'll come after you too. It means when I need you to play the devoted wife at events filled with people who've killed for less than what you're getting paid, you smile and you don't flinch. It means living in my home, following my rules, and trusting that I'll protect you, even though you have no reason to trust me at all. I don't trust you, Lena said honestly, but I trust that you need this arrangement as much as I do. You're not going to let anything happen to me because that would ruin whatever you're trying to accomplish. Self-interest. It's more reliable than trust. Adrian smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. You're smarter than Victoria gave you credit for. That's either going to make this easier or much, much harder. When do we start? The wedding is in 3 days. You'll move into my home tomorrow. Tonight, you'll meet some of my people, the ones who need to believe this is real. Think you can handle that? Lena thought about her grandmother in that hospital bed, about the surgery happening tomorrow that wouldn't be happening without this deal. I can handle whatever I have to. We'll see. Adrian reached for his cane, preparing to stand. One more thing, Lena. The people in my world are very good at spotting lies. If you can't sell this, if you can't convince them that you actually want to be here, they'll tear you apart looking for the truth. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared for me to tell them exactly what I think of you? That might actually help. Nothing says real marriage like visible contempt. He stood slowly, and Lena noticed how carefully he moved, how much pain he was hiding. Come on, let's go meet the people who are going to decide if you live or die for the next 6 months. The private facility, where Adrian was supposedly recovering, turned out to be the entire 30th floor of a different building, converted into what looked like a fortress disguised as a luxury apartment. Guards at the elevator. More guards in the hallway. Security cameras everywhere. Subtle, Lena muttered. Necessary. Adrian led her through a door that required a keycard, facial recognition, and probably a blood sacrifice. After what happened, I don't take chances. What happened? The stabbing that had nearly killed him and apparently started all of this. Lena wanted to ask, but didn't. Some things you didn't need to know. The main room was filled with people who looked like they'd been cast for a movie about dangerous men in expensive suits. They all turned when Adrian entered, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Everyone, Adrian said, his voice carrying despite the obvious pain, this is Lena Carter, my fiancée. The woman I'm going to marry in 3 days. I expect you to treat her with the same respect you'd give me. Any questions? The silence was deafening. Then a man near the back, tall, scarred, looking like he'd killed people and enjoyed it, spoke up. Where'd you find her? That's not your concern, Marcus. It's my concern if she's a plant, if she's here to finish what those bastards started. Adrian's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You think I'm stupid enough to marry someone without vetting her completely? You think Victoria would bring me anyone who wasn't thoroughly investigated? I think you're desperate, Marcus said bluntly. And desperate people make mistakes. Then it's a good thing I'm not desperate. Adrian moved further into the room, each step deliberate. I'm strategic. There's a difference. Lena serves a purpose. She's going to stand beside me, convince our enemies that I'm stronger than ever. And in 6 months, she's going to walk away with enough money to never think about any of us again. It's clean, it's simple, and it works. If she doesn't get killed first, another man said, you're making her a target. I'm making her my wife. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Make sure that information spreads. Lena stood there listening to them talk about her like she was a piece of furniture being appraised for value and felt her temper rise. I'm right here, you know. You could try asking me questions instead of just talking around me. Marcus turned his attention to her fully for the first time. Fine. Why are you doing this? Money. That's it? Just money? Have you ever needed money so badly that you'd marry a stranger to get it? Because I have, so yeah, just money. Sorry if that's not romantic enough for you. A few of the men actually smiled at that. Marcus didn't. You understand what you're walking into? A house full of criminals who might try to kill me. Your boss made that very clear. And you're still here. I'm still here. Marcus looked at Adrian. She's got spine. I'll give her that. Still think this is a stupid idea. But if you're determined to go through with it, at least you didn't pick someone who'll fold the first time things get ugly. Things are already ugly, Adrian said. That's why we're here. Now, if we're done interrogating my future wife, we have business to discuss. Lena, Victoria is going to take you to get measured for your wedding dress. I'll see you tomorrow when you move in. It was a dismissal. Lena should have been relieved to get away from the hostile stares and barely veiled threats. Instead, she felt something that might have been disappointment. That's it? I don't get to stay for the criminal conspiracy meeting? You don't want to, Adrian said quietly. Trust me. I don't trust you, remember? Then believe me when I say some things you're better off not knowing. The less you know, the safer you are. Lena wanted to argue, but Victoria appeared like she'd been summoned, all professional smiles and designer suit. This way, Miss Carter. We have a lot to accomplish before the wedding. As Lena followed Victoria out, she heard Marcus's voice behind her. She's not going to last a week. Adrian's response was too quiet to hear, but whatever he said made the room go silent. Stop. The next day, Lena moved into Adrian's estate with 2 suitcases and a feeling of profound unreality. The place wasn't a house, it was a compound. 20 acres of carefully landscaped property, surrounded by walls that looked like they could stop a tank. The main building was all stone and glass, beautiful in a cold, intimidating way, like Adrian himself. Mr. Voss is in his study, said the woman who'd introduced herself as Mrs. Chen, no relation to Victoria apparently, the head of household staff. He asked that you get settled first. Your rooms are on the 2nd floor, east wing. Rooms, plural. Lena had expected to have to share a bedroom to keep up appearances. The contract had been unclear about sleeping arrangements. The suite she was shown to was bigger than her entire apartment had been. Bedroom, sitting room, bathroom that looked like a spa, walk-in closet already filled with clothes in exactly her size. Her size. They'd measured her yesterday, but this was too much, too fast. This is too much, Lena said aloud. Mr. Voss was very specific about your accommodations, Mrs. Chen said neutrally. Is there anything else you need? About 100 answers to 100 questions, but Lena just shook her head. Mrs. Chen left, and Lena was alone in a room that cost more than she'd make in 10 years. She unpacked slowly, putting her few belongings in drawers that could have held 10 times as much. Her phone rang. The hospital. Her grandmother's surgery had gone well. She was in recovery, expected to make a full recovery. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, massive, expensive, empty, and cried. Not sad tears. Not happy tears. Just overwhelmed tears from someone who'd been running on empty for too long and finally had a moment to fall apart. When she'd pulled herself together, she went to find Adrian. The study wasn't hard to locate. She just followed the sound of arguing voices. Completely unreasonable, and you know it. I know that I make the decisions, and you follow them. That's how this works. Not when your decisions are going to get people killed. Lena knocked on the half-open door. The voices stopped immediately. Adrian sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of dark wood, and Marcus stood in front of it, looking like he wanted to punch something. Bad time? Lena asked. Always, Adrian said. Come in. Marcus was just leaving. I wasn't. You were. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. We'll continue this later. Marcus shot Lena a look that might have been a warning or might have been just general hostility, and left. The door closed behind him with a definitive click. Your second-in-command seems to hate me, Lena observed. Marcus hates everyone until they prove themselves useful. Don't take it personally. Adrian gestured to a chair. Your grandmother's surgery went well. It wasn't a question. You have someone watching the hospital? I have someone making sure the doctors do their jobs correctly. Consider it a wedding gift. That's creepy and controlling. That's making sure my investment pays off. If your grandmother dies, you might do something stupid like try to back out of our deal. I don't like complications. Everything about this is a complication. True. Adrian set down whatever paper he'd been reading and actually looked at her. Are you settling in? Into a room bigger than my apartment? Into a house with armed guards? Into the reality that I'm going to marry you in 2 days? Sure, settling in great. You have regrets. I have a lot of things. Regrets is probably one of them. But I'm here, aren't I? For now. Adrian stood carefully, using the desk for support. Walk with me. There's something you need to see. He led her through the house, more like a museum than a home, filled with art and antiques and things that screamed money, to a room that looked like a security center. Monitors covered one wall, showing camera feeds from what had to be every corner of the property. This is what keeps me alive, Adrian said quietly. Constant surveillance, constant awareness. Nothing happens on this property that I don't know about. And starting tomorrow, that includes you. You're going to watch me? I'm going to protect you. There's a difference. But yes, your movements will be monitored. Your phone calls will be filtered through secure lines. Your internet access will be limited. You're not a prisoner, but you're not free either. Do you understand? Lena stared at the monitors, seeing herself on one of them, a small figure in a massive house. This is insane. This is survival, and for the next 6 months, your survival is tied to mine. I take that seriously. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. Why go through all this? Why not just hire actual security? Why do you need a wife? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, because my enemies think I'm weak. They think the attack broke me. A man who can't even keep himself safe, how can he run an empire? But a man who's getting married, who's planning a future, who's strong enough to bring someone into his life, that's a different message. You're using me as propaganda. I'm using you as proof that I'm still in control. It's not personal. Everything about this is personal, Lena said. You're asking me to live with you, to stand beside you, to let people think we're in love. You can't pretend that's not personal. I can pretend anything if it keeps me alive. The question is, can you? Lena looked at him, really looked at him, saw the pain he was hiding, the anger, the absolute refusal to show weakness even when he could barely stand without support. You're terrified, she said softly. You're absolutely terrified that they're right, that you are weak now. Adrian's jaw tightened. Get out. What? Get out of this room, now. Lena should have listened, should have walked away. Instead, she stepped closer. I'm right, aren't I? That's what this is really about, not fooling your enemies, fooling yourself. You don't know anything about me. I know you got stabbed nearly to death, and you're still trying to act like you're invincible. I know you can barely walk without that cane, but you're too proud to use it in front of your people. I know. Adrian moved faster than she thought he could, closing the distance between them. For a second, Lena thought he might actually hurt her, but he just stood there, breathing hard, close enough that she could see the scar on his face in perfect detail. Don't, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Presume to understand me. You're here for 6 months. You'll play your part, take your money, and leave. That's the arrangement, nothing more. Then maybe you should stop looking at me like I'm something more than an arrangement, Lena shot back. They stood there frozen in a moment that felt like standing on the edge of something neither of them wanted to fall into. Then Adrian stepped back, his expression shutting down. The wedding is the day after tomorrow. 10 a.m., private ceremony, minimal guests. Victoria will brief you on what to expect. Until then, stay in your wing of the house. Don't wander. Don't ask questions. Just stay out of my way. He left without waiting for a response, moving slower than he'd arrived, the pain catching up with him. Lena stood alone in the security room, surrounded by monitors showing empty hallways and guards at posts and a life she'd stepped into with no idea how to step back out. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Your grandmother is awake and asking for you. Lena left the monitors behind and went to find the nearest exit. She had less than 2 days before she married a stranger who looked at her like she was both his salvation and his doom. Might as well spend them with the only person in her life who still felt real. The wedding happened in a room that felt more like a courthouse than a chapel. No flowers, no music, no pretense that this was anything other than a transaction being made legally binding. Just Adrian standing at the front with his cane, Lena walking toward him in a dress that cost more than her car used to, and a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Victoria stood as witness on Adrian's side, Marcus on Lena's, which felt like some kind of cosmic joke. The man who'd wanted her gone was now officially vouching for her presence. Do you, Adrian James Voss, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Adrian's voice was steady. I do. The judge turned to Lena, and suddenly this felt very real. Not the ceremony, that was still sterile and wrong, but the weight of what she was doing, the absolute insanity of legally binding herself to a man who'd threatened her just yesterday, who looked at her like she was a problem he couldn't solve. Do you, Lena Marie Carter, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Her grandmother's face flashed through her mind. Awake, alive, recovering. Worth it. This was worth it. I do. The rings were platinum, expensive, cold against her skin. Adrian slid hers on with hands that didn't shake, didn't hesitate. When it was Lena's turn, she noticed the slight tremor in his left hand, the side that had been damaged, and something in her chest twisted. You may kiss the bride. Adrian leaned in, and Lena realized they hadn't discussed this part, hadn't practiced, hadn't prepared. His lips touched hers for exactly 2 seconds, professional and distant, and then it was over. Congratulations, the judge said, sounding like he was congratulating them on a prison sentence. You're legally married. Marcus was the first to speak after the ceremony ended. Well, that was romantic. Shut up, Marcus, Adrian said without heat. He turned to Lena. We have a reception tonight, small, just my inner circle. They need to see us together. How small? 30 people, maybe 40. Lena thought about the last party she'd attended. Her friend's birthday at a dive bar, cheap beer, and cheaper nachos. I don't know how to talk to crime bosses. You don't talk to them. You smile, you stay close to me, and you let them draw their own conclusions. Can you do that? I married you, didn't I? I think I can handle a party. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. We'll see. The reception was held in the main house's ballroom, which Lena hadn't even known existed until Victoria led her there that evening. The room was full of people who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine about wealth and danger. Women in dresses that cost more than medical equipment. Men in suits tailored so perfectly they might as well be uniforms. And all of them were watching Lena like she was something they needed to categorize before deciding whether to accept or destroy. Adrian appeared at her side, moving without the cane now, though Lena could see the cost in how he held himself. Ready? Not even remotely. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He offered his arm, and Lena took it, feeling the tension in his muscles. Stay close. Don't drink anything you didn't see poured. Don't go anywhere alone. And if anyone asks personal questions, redirect to me. You're really selling this whole fun party vibe. This isn't fun. This is survival dressed up in champagne and small talk. They entered together, and the room's energy shifted. Conversations paused. Eyes tracked their movement. Lena felt like prey walking into a room full of predators who were trying to decide if she was worth the effort of killing. A woman approached, mid-40s, stunning in a way that seemed weaponized, with eyes that could cut glass. Adrian, so this is your bride. Natasha. Adrian's voice cooled. Lena, this is Natasha Volkov. She handles our East Coast operations. Operations? Lena kept her voice neutral. That's a nice way of saying it. Natasha smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. I like this one. She's honest. How refreshing. She turned her attention fully to Lena. Tell me, dear, how did you and Adrian meet? He's been so secretive about his personal life. This was a test. Lena could feel it. We met through a mutual friend. Nothing dramatic, just right place, right time. How romantic. And you didn't mind that your husband has so many enemies? I didn't marry his enemies. I married him. Natasha's smile grew sharper. Brave or stupid? I haven't decided which. Does it matter? Lena asked. I'm here either way. True. Natasha looked at Adrian. She's got spine. That's good. She'll need it. She drifted away, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and veiled threats. Adrian's grip on Lena's arm tightened slightly. Well done. I feel like I just passed some kind of exam I didn't know I was taking. You did. Natasha is one of my most valuable people, but she's also one of the most dangerous. If she'd sensed weakness, she would have pushed until you broke. And if I'd broken, then everyone here would know this marriage is a sham, and we'd both have problems. Adrian steered her toward a quieter corner of the room. You're doing better than I expected. Your expectations must be incredibly low. They usually are. People tend to disappoint. Before Lena could respond, Marcus appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. Figured the bride should at least get to drink at her own wedding. Poured it myself, boss, so it's safe. Adrian took both glasses, examined them briefly, then handed one to Lena. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. We've got incoming. Marcus nodded toward the entrance, where a man was arriving late, flanked by his own security. That's Dmitry Kozlov, controls the waterfront operations. Also happens to be the one who ordered the hit on you. Lena's hand tightened on her champagne glass. The one who stabbed you is here? At our wedding? Allegedly ordered the hit, Adrian corrected. No proof. And yes, he's here because keeping your enemies close is better than wondering what they're planning. Dmitri was tall, built like someone who'd done his own violence before hiring people to do it for him. He spotted Adrian and smiled, heading straight toward them. Adrian, congratulations on your marriage. I was surprised to hear the news. Surprised you were well enough to stand for a ceremony. I'm resilient. Adrian's voice was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Dmitri, this is my wife, Lena. Dmitri's eyes swept over Lena in a way that made her skin crawl. Beautiful. Tell me, my dear, does your husband tell you about his business, about the dangerous world he's brought you into? He tells me what I need to know, Lena said carefully. And what do you think you need to know? Lena looked at Adrian, then back at Dmitri. Fuck it. I know that someone tried to kill my husband and failed. I know that whoever did it is probably scared now, because Adrian's still here and getting stronger every day. And I know that I'm not going anywhere, which means anyone who comes after him has to go through me first. The silence that followed was profound. Then Dmitri laughed, loud and genuine. She's fierce. Adrian, you've done well. A wife with fire. Very impressive. I don't keep weak things around me, Adrian said quietly. You should remember that. The threat hung in the air between them, barely disguised. Dmitri's smile didn't waver, but something changed in his eyes. Of course. Well, I should pay my respects to the other guests. Congratulations again. When he was gone, Lena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Did I just make that worse? No. Adrian was looking at her with something that might have been respect. You made it better. He expected you to be scared, pliable. Instead, you showed teeth. That matters here. I was terrified. I know. But you didn't show it. That's the difference. Adrian set down his untouched champagne. Come on, there are more people you need to meet before this night is over. The next 2 hours were a blur of names and faces, each one more dangerous than the last. Lena smiled until her face hurt, stood close to Adrian until her feet ached in the expensive heels Victoria had provided, and played the role of devoted wife to a man she barely knew. By the time the last guest left, she was exhausted in ways she'd never been before. Physical tiredness she understood. She'd worked double shifts, pulled all-nighters. But this was different. This was the exhaustion of maintaining a lie so completely that she'd started to forget what the truth looked like. Adrian found her in the ballroom after everyone had gone, sitting on one of the chairs with her shoes kicked off. You survived. Barely. Do we have to do that often? Often enough. My world runs on appearances and alliances. You'll get used to it. What if I don't want to get used to it? Adrian sat down next to her, moving carefully. This late, with no one to perform for, he let the pain show. Then the next 6 months are going to be very difficult for you. Lena looked at him, really looked. The scar on his face was still pink, healing. There were others, she knew, hidden under his expensive suit. Signs of violence survived. Can I ask you something? You can ask. I may not answer. Why did they try to kill you? What did you do? Adrian was quiet for so long that Lena thought he wouldn't respond. Then, I refused to compromise on something they wanted. Territory, control, doesn't matter now. What matters is they thought I was weak enough to eliminate. They were wrong. And now you have to prove you're not weak by parading me around like some kind of trophy. You're not a trophy. You're a statement. There's a difference. What kind of statement? That I'm still thinking about the future. That I'm building something instead of just defending what I have. That I'm... He trailed off, jaw tight. That you're what? That I'm still human enough to want something beyond survival. Adrian stood abruptly. You should rest. Tomorrow starts early. We have meetings, appearances, more performances. Adrian, Lena stood too, ignoring the protests from her tired feet. Thank you. For what? For keeping your word. About my grandmother. About protecting me tonight. About all of this. Something complicated crossed his face. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. He left before she could respond, moving through the massive house like a ghost haunting his own life. Lena made her way back to her room, past security guards who nodded respectfully, through hallways that still felt like a museum. Her phone buzzed with a text from her grandmother. "How was your wedding, sweetheart?" Lena had told her the basics. Met someone, fell fast, getting married quickly. Her grandmother thought it was a whirlwind romance. She had no idea it was a business transaction. "Beautiful," Lena typed back. "I'll tell you all about it tomorrow." She fell asleep in a bed that cost more than she'd made in years, wearing a ring that bound her to a stranger, and dreamed of guns pressed to temples and men who smiled while planning murder. The next morning started with a knock on her door at 6 a.m. Victoria, impeccably dressed as always, holding a tablet and looking like she'd been awake for hours. "Good morning, Mrs. Voss. We have a busy day." Mrs. Voss. The name still felt foreign. What kind of busy? "Adrian has a meeting with potential investors at 9. You'll need to be there, appropriately dressed. I've laid out options in your closet. After that, lunch with Natasha and several other key women in the organization. They want to get to know you better." Lena groaned. "That sounds like torture." "It's necessary. These women are powerful in their own right. If they accept you, others will follow. If they don't..." Victoria didn't need to finish that sentence. "Right, acceptance or death. Got it." "I wouldn't put it quite so dramatically, but yes, essentially." Victoria consulted her tablet. "There's also a security briefing at 2 p.m. You need to learn the protocols for moving around the property and in public." Adrian was quite insistent about that. "He thinks someone's going to try to kill me. He thinks someone's going to try to use you to get to him, which amounts to the same thing. Now breakfast is in 30 minutes. I suggest you don't keep Mr. Voss waiting. He's particular about punctuality." The breakfast room was smaller than Lena expected, almost intimate compared to the rest of the house. Adrian sat at the head of a table that could seat 12, reading something on his phone, a cup of coffee at his elbow. He looked up when Lena entered. "You're on time." "Good." "Victoria scared me into it." "Victoria's good at that." He gestured to a seat near him. "Eat something." "You barely touched anything at the reception." "I was too busy trying not to get metaphorically murdered." "Today you get to try not to get literally murdered. Progress." There might have been humor in his voice. Might have been. A staff member appeared with food, eggs, toast, fruit that looked too perfect to be real. Lena ate mechanically, aware of Adrian watching her. "You did well yesterday," he said finally. "Better than I expected." "You keep saying that. Your expectations are depressing." "Most people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. You held your ground." "I was faking it." "Everyone's faking it. The ones who survive are just better at not showing it." Adrian set down his phone. "The meeting today is important. These investors fund legitimate business ventures that we use to launder money?" His expression hardened. "You don't know anything about my business." "I know enough to guess." "You're not going to lecture me on financial details, are you? Because that wasn't in the contract." "The contract says you attend necessary functions. This is necessary. You sit, you smile, you let them think I'm stable enough to manage both an empire and a marriage. That's all. Your expectations really are depressing." The meeting was held in a conference room that looked like it belonged in a corporate headquarters, not a crime boss's house. 10 men in expensive suits, all watching Adrian like they were waiting for him to fail, and Lena like she was an exotic animal brought in for their amusement. Adrian introduced her simply. "My wife, Lena." No explanation, no backstory, just her presence as proof of whatever he was trying to prove. The meeting itself was brutally boring. They discussed profit margins and investment returns and expansion opportunities, all in language so coded that Lena couldn't tell what was legitimate and what was criminal. She sat next to Adrian, maintaining the posture Victoria had drilled into her, attentive but not intrusive, present but not demanding attention. Halfway through, Adrian's hand cramped. Lena saw it happen. The sudden tension, the way his left hand spasmed and he had to set down his pen. No one else seemed to notice, or if they did, they pretended not to. Without thinking, Lena reached under the table and took his hand, working her thumbs gently against the cramped muscles. Adrian went rigid, but he didn't pull away. Slowly, the cramp eased. When the meeting ended and the investors left, Adrian finally spoke. "You didn't have to do that." "You were in pain." "I'm always in pain. I've learned to manage it." "Clearly." Lena stood, her back aching from sitting perfectly still for 2 hours. You're welcome, by the way. I didn't thank you. I noticed. Adrian looked at her, and for just a moment, his carefully controlled expression cracked. This is harder than I expected. The recovery? Having someone see it. He picked up his cane, which he'd hidden under the table. You should go. Natasha's waiting. Lunch with Natasha and 3 other women was exactly as terrible as Lena had feared. They sat in a private room at a restaurant that probably didn't have prices on the menu, eating food that was more art than sustenance, and asked questions designed to find weaknesses. So tell us about yourself, Lena, said a woman named Irina, who wore diamonds like armor. Where did you grow up? Nowhere interesting. Family? Just my grandmother. How convenient. Natasha's smile was sharp. No complicated family ties, no messy history. Almost like you were chosen specifically for your lack of connections. Lena met her eyes. Almost like Adrian wanted someone who wouldn't bring drama to an already dramatic situation. Or someone who wouldn't be missed if something happened to her, another woman, Sophia, suggested lightly. The threat was barely veiled. Lena set down her fork carefully. If something happens to me, my grandmother knows exactly where I am and who I'm with. So does my lawyer. So missing me would definitely be noticed. It was a bluff. Lena didn't have a lawyer. But these women didn't know that. Natasha laughed. I like her. She's smarter than she looks. I'm not sure that's a compliment, Lena said. It wasn't meant to be insulting, but you should know we protect our own here. Adrian is one of ours. If you hurt him, if you betray him, if you prove to be anything other than what you claim, Natasha leaned forward slightly. Well, let's just say you wouldn't be the first problem we've solved permanently. Lena's heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. Good thing I'm not planning to be a problem then. Plans change. Irina waved for more wine. People disappoint, especially when money's involved. I'm being paid to do a job, Lena said. I'm doing it. That's the arrangement. So cold, Sophia observed. No love at all? Love wasn't in the contract. The women exchanged glances. Then Natasha raised her glass. To honest marriages. Rare, but refreshing. The rest of lunch passed in slightly less hostile small talk. By the time Lena left, she felt like she'd survived an interrogation disguised as a social event. Marcus was waiting outside. You're still alive. That's promising. They threatened to kill me. Yeah, they do that. Means they're taking you seriously. If they didn't care, they wouldn't bother threatening. That's a terrible way to measure success. Welcome to Adrian's world. Everything's terrible. You just learned to grade it on a curve. The security briefing was conducted by a man named Torres, who looked like he'd been military before he was criminal. He showed Lena the property's safe rooms, the emergency exits, the protocols for if the house was breached. In the event of an attack, your job is simple, Torres said. Get to the nearest safe room and lock yourself in. Don't try to help, don't try to fight, just hide until we've neutralized the threat. And if I can't get to a safe room? Then you stay with Mr. Voss and do exactly what he says. He's survived more attempts on his life than most people have birthdays. Trust his instincts. That night, Lena found Adrian in the security room she'd seen on her first day, watching the monitors with an intensity that suggested he was looking for threats in every shadow. Do you ever sleep? She asked from the doorway. He didn't turn around. Not much, not anymore. Because you're waiting for them to try again. Because I'm making sure I see them coming when they do. He finally looked at her. How was lunch? Your friends threatened to kill me. They're not my friends. And yes, they would have. Standard procedure. Your life is insane. I know. He turned back to the monitors. You should rest. Tomorrow's another full day. Lena should have left. Should have gone to her massive empty room and tried to sleep. Instead, she pulled up a chair next to him. Teach me. Teach you what? How to see what you see. How to know who's dangerous. How to survive in your world. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Why? Because I'm stuck here for 6 months, and I'd rather not spend them being terrified and clueless. Plus, you clearly don't sleep anyway. Might as well make use of the time. Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. Fine. See that monitor, top left? That's the east gate. Watch the guard rotation. Notice anything? Lena watched. They change every hour, every 2 hours. But watch Johnson there. He checks his phone every 15 minutes, creates a pattern, a weakness. You think your own guards are weaknesses? I think everyone has patterns, and patterns can be exploited. That's how they got to me. Found a pattern in my routine and used it. How did they do it? Lena asked quietly. If you don't mind me asking. Adrian was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant. I used to go to a gym. Same time, same days. Thought I was being careful, but careful isn't enough when someone's patient. They waited 6 months, learned every detail, and struck when I was most vulnerable. 3 men, 8 stab wounds. I survived because Marcus got there in time, but it was close. Closer than I like to think about. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Learn from my mistakes. They sat there for hours, Adrian teaching Lena to read the monitors, to notice inconsistencies, to think like someone looking for vulnerabilities. It was strange and intimate in a way their actual wedding hadn't been. No performance, no audience, just 2 people trying to survive the same dangerous world. Around 3 a.m., Lena finally stood to leave. Thank you for this. You're surprisingly easy to talk to, Adrian said, sounding almost surprised by the admission. Most people are either afraid of me or trying to use me. You're just here. Where else would I be? I'm contractually obligated to be here. You could be in your room, avoiding me, counting down the days until this is over. I am counting down the days. I'm just not avoiding you while I do it. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Good night, Lena. Good night, Adrian. As she left, she heard him go back to watching the monitors, waiting for threats that might never come, unable to stop looking, even though it was destroying him from the inside. Lena fell asleep that night thinking about a man so broken by violence that he couldn't close his eyes without seeing enemies in every shadow, and wondering what it said about her that she was starting to understand exactly how he felt. The routine settled in faster than Lena expected. Mornings with Adrian reviewing security footage and discussing threats both real and imagined. Afternoons attending meetings where men in expensive suits talked in code about things Lena was learning to decode. Evenings alone in her suite, talking to her grandmother on the phone and pretending everything was normal. 3 weeks into the marriage, Adrian could walk without the cane for short distances. Lena noticed because she'd started cataloging his recovery like data points in a study she couldn't abandon. The way his left hand trembled less when he signed documents, how he could stand through entire meetings now without his jaw going tight from pain. Small victories that he never acknowledged, but that Lena saw anyway. You're staring, Adrian said one morning, not looking up from the contract he was reading. They were in his study, Lena supposedly reviewing the guest list for an upcoming reception while actually watching him work. I'm observing. There's a difference. Observing what? You're getting better. Stronger. The physical therapy is working. Adrian finally looked at her. You pay attention to things you shouldn't. Should I pretend not to notice? Would that make you more comfortable? Nothing about this makes me comfortable. He set down the contract. But yes, the therapy is working. Slowly. Too slowly for my liking, but Torres says I'm ahead of schedule. Torres would say that even if you weren't. He's terrified of you. Everyone's terrified of me. That's the point. I'm not terrified of you. Adrian's expression shifted into something Lena couldn't read. You should be. I'm not a good man, Lena. Nothing about me is safe. I never asked for safe. I asked for honest. Honest and safe are usually the same thing in my world. The truth gets people killed. Before Lena could respond, Marcus burst through the door without knocking. We've got a problem. Adrian was on his feet immediately, his body language shifting from almost relaxed to completely alert. What kind of problem? Dimitri's making moves. Just pulled 3 of our suppliers, redirected shipments to his own operations. He's testing boundaries. How much did we lose? 200,000 this week. Could be more if he keeps pushing. Adrian's jaw tightened. Set up a meeting tomorrow. I want to look him in the eye when I remind him what happens when people test me. Boss, you sure that's smart? You're still what, Marcus? Still recovering? Still weak? Adrian's voice went cold. That's exactly why I need to do this. Show him and everyone else that I'm done being patient. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but knew better. I'll set it up. You want Lena there? Both men turned to look at her. Lena had frozen in her chair, suddenly very aware that she was watching something shift from theoretical danger to actual violence. No, Adrian said firmly. This meeting is just business. Dimitri's going to ask why your wife isn't there, Marcus pointed out. Might look like you're hiding her, like you don't trust her. I don't care how it looks. You should. Appearances are everything right now. Marcus glanced at Lena. Besides, she handled herself at the wedding reception. Maybe it's time to see how she does in a real negotiation. Adrian stared at Marcus like he'd suggested something insane. Absolutely not. Why not? Lena heard herself ask. If I'm supposed to be your wife, shouldn't I be at your side for important meetings? This isn't a social event. This is me potentially having to threaten a man who already tried to kill me once. You don't need to be there for that. But I need to be there for everything else? I need to smile at parties and have lunch with women who threaten me and play the devoted wife for investors, but when things get real, I'm suddenly too delicate? It's not about delicate. It's about dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. Lena stood up, surprising herself with the intensity of her own frustration. You keep treating me like I'm some fragile thing that needs protecting, but you're the one who dragged me into this world. You don't get to pick and choose when I'm strong enough to handle it. The silence that followed was tense. Marcus looked between them like he was watching a bomb decide whether to explode. Finally, Adrian spoke, his voice carefully controlled. If you come to this meeting, you follow my lead. You don't speak unless I tell you to. You don't react, no matter what you hear. Can you do that? Yes. I mean it, Lena. Dimitri is not like the investors or Natasha's circle. He's the man who ordered my death. If he senses any weakness, any hesitation, he'll use it. I understand. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Fine. But you stay next to me the entire time. Marcus, set it up for tomorrow, 2 p.m. Neutral location, our security. After Marcus left, Adrian turned to Lena. You have no idea what you just agreed to. Then maybe you should tell me. He moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. Dimitri doesn't negotiate. He postures, he threatens, and he watches for any sign that you're weak enough to exploit. This meeting is theater. I remind him that crossing me has consequences. He reminds me that he's still powerful enough to be a threat. We dance around actually killing each other because all-out war would be expensive for everyone. But make no mistake, if he thought he could take me out without consequences, he'd do it in a heartbeat. And you want me there for this? No, I don't want you anywhere near this. But Marcus is right. If I exclude you, it looks like I'm protecting you, which means you're a vulnerability. If you're there, it sends a message that you're part of this, that attacking you means attacking me directly. So I'm bait. You're a statement. Adrian turned back to face her. There's a difference. You keep saying that, but I'm not sure I believe you anymore. The next day, Victoria appeared with another outfit. This one less cocktail party, more boardroom warrior. Black suit, severe lines, the kind of thing that said professional and untouchable. Mr. Voss wants you to look strong, Victoria explained. Not decorative. You're attending a business meeting, not a social event. Lena looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I look like I'm about to fire someone. Good. That's the energy we want. The meeting was held in a private dining room at a hotel downtown. Neutral ground, as Adrian had said, though Lena noticed their security stationed at every entrance. Marcus stood behind Adrian's chair like a sentinel. Lena sat next to Adrian, close enough to present a united front, far enough to not seem clingy. Dimitri arrived 10 minutes late, a power play, Adrian had warned, with his own security detail and an expression that suggested he was looking forward to this confrontation. Adrian, you're looking well. Much better than the last time I saw you in a hospital bed. The smile that accompanied this was sharp enough to cut. Funny, I don't remember you visiting. Adrian's voice was pleasant, but there was an edge underneath. Must have been someone else's hospital room. Must have been. Dimitri's eyes slid to Lena. And the beautiful bride, still playing house with our friend here? Still married to my husband, Lena said evenly, remembering Adrian's instruction to stay quiet, but unable to let that particular jab pass. Still very much here. Dimitri's smile widened. She speaks. How refreshing. Most wives in our world know to stay silent. Most wives in your world probably have better sense than to marry in the first place. Lena replied. Adrian's hand moved under the table, finding Lena's, a warning squeeze. She squeezed back but didn't break eye contact with Dmitri. I like her, Dmitri said, though his tone suggested he meant the opposite. Very spirited. Tell me, does she know what you really do, Adrian? Or have you fed her the same sanitized version you give to investors? She knows enough, Adrian said. Now, shall we discuss why you're redirecting my suppliers, or are we going to waste time with small talk? Ah, yes, business. You always were impatient with pleasantries. Dmitri settled into his chair like he owned it. The suppliers came to me with better offers. I simply provided them with opportunities you couldn't. You mean you undercut my prices and threatened their families if they didn't comply? I mean, I showed them that there are alternatives to your declining empire. The temperature in the room dropped. Adrian's hand was still on Lena's, and she felt his grip tighten. My empire is far from declining, Adrian said quietly. A temporary setback doesn't mean weakness. It means I'm eliminating problems and consolidating power. By marrying a civilian, by hiding in your fortress pretending to be a legitimate businessman? Dmitri leaned forward. We both know what you are, Adrian, and we both know you're not as strong as you used to be. Then it's a good thing strength isn't just physical. Adrian released Lena's hand and placed both of his on the table, deliberately casual. You took my suppliers, fine. I'll take 3 of yours. You want to play games about territory? I'll remind you that I still control 70% of the distribution network in this city. You control what? 15%? 20% on a good day? Percentages change. Not as fast as you'd like. Adrian stood slowly, and Lena noticed he didn't use the table for support. Pure will keeping him steady. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return my suppliers, with an apology. You're going to remember that I've been more than generous in letting you operate in my territory, and you're going to stop testing me before I stop being patient. Dmitri didn't stand. And if I don't? Then you'll find out exactly how strong I still am. And trust me, Dmitri, you won't like the answer. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lena forced herself to breathe normally, to not show the fear crawling up her spine. These men were talking about violence with the same casual tone other people use to discuss the weather. Finally, Dmitri stood. I'll consider your request. It wasn't a request. Everything's a request when you don't have the power to enforce it. Dmitri buttoned his suit jacket. But I'll give you credit, Adrian. You're putting on a good show. The wife, the recovery, the threats. Very convincing. Almost makes me forget that you're one bad day away from collapse. He left before Adrian could respond, his security following like shadows. Marcus moved immediately to Adrian's side. Boss, you okay? Adrian was leaning against the table now, the cost of standing for that confrontation finally showing. Fine. Get me home. The drive back was silent. Adrian sat with his eyes closed, jaw tight with pain he was done hiding. Lena wanted to say something, ask if he was all right, offer help, anything, but the set of his shoulders suggested he was barely holding himself together, and any sympathy might break something vital. They made it back to the estate, and Adrian disappeared into his private rooms without a word. Marcus caught Lena's arm as she started to follow. Let him be. When he's like this, he needs space. He's hurt. He's always hurt. Right now, he's also furious and embarrassed, which is worse. Give him time. Lena went to her own suite, but she couldn't settle. She paced, replaying the meeting in her head. The threats, the posturing, the way Dmitri had looked at her like she was a weakness to exploit, the way Adrian had stood despite obvious pain just to prove he could. 2 hours later, she found herself outside Adrian's rooms. She knocked before she could talk herself out of it. Go away, Marcus. It's not Marcus. A long pause. Then, I said I needed space. I know. I'm not good at following directions. Lena tried the door. Unlocked. She pushed it open. Adrian's private suite was darker than hers, decorated in shades of gray and black that matched his moods. He sat on the edge of his bed, shirt unbuttoned, revealing scars that Lena had only imagined until now. 8 stab wounds, he'd said. She counted them. He hadn't been exaggerating. You shouldn't be here, Adrian said, not looking at her. Probably not. Lena closed the door behind her. But I am anyway. I don't need your pity. Good, because I'm not offering any. She sat in a chair across from him, far enough to not be intrusive. I need to understand something. Understand what? Why you stood up during that meeting? You were in pain. Dmitri could see it. We all could. But you stood anyway. Why? Adrian finally looked at her. Because if I'd stayed sitting, he would have seen it as surrender, weakness, an invitation to push harder. So you hurt yourself just to prove a point. I hurt myself to survive. There's a difference. Is there? Lena leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're destroying yourself trying to be something you're not anymore. And what am I? Human. Damaged, still recovering from nearly dying. But instead of admitting that, you push yourself until you break. And then you hide in here so no one sees the cracks. Adrian's laugh was bitter. You think I don't know I'm broken? I live with it every day. Every step that hurts, every hand that shakes, every night I can't sleep because I'm waiting for someone to finish what Dmitri started. I know exactly what I am. Then why keep pretending you're not? Because the moment I admit weakness, the moment I show them I'm vulnerable, they'll tear me apart. Not just Dmitri, all of them. Every person who's waiting for me to fail so they can take what I've built. What about the people who aren't waiting for you to fail? Lena asked quietly. What about Marcus, who got you to the hospital in time? What about me, who's here right now instead of counting down days until I can leave? You're here because I'm paying you to be here. I'm here because I chose to knock on your door. The contract doesn't cover late-night check-ins. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Then, so quietly, she almost missed it. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Trust someone to see me like this and not use it against me. Lena stood and moved closer, slowly, like approaching something wild that might bolt. Then don't trust me. Just let me help anyway. Why would you help me? Because for some reason I don't fully understand. I don't want to watch you destroy yourself. And because whether we like it or not, we're in this together for the next 5 months. Might as well make it bearable. Adrian looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he couldn't figure out. Then he did something Lena never expected. He laughed, not bitter this time, almost genuine. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Can I be both? Probably. He winced as he moved to button his shirt. His hands were shaking too much to manage it. Lena moved without thinking, batting his hands away and doing the buttons herself. This close, she could see the toll the meeting had taken. The exhaustion in his eyes, the pain lines around his mouth. All the things he hid from everyone else. There, she said when she finished. Now you're decent again. I'm a lot of things. Decent isn't one of them. I'll be the judge of that. She left before he could argue, closing the door softly behind her. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and took a shaky breath. What the hell was she doing? Getting involved? Caring about this man who'd hired her to play pretend? This wasn't part of the deal. But then again, nothing about this arrangement had gone according to plan. The next morning, Adrian was back to his controlled, distant self. If he remembered their conversation from the night before, he didn't acknowledge it. They fell back into routine. Security reviews, meetings, the careful dance of presenting a united front while maintaining emotional distance. 2 weeks later, Victoria informed Lena about the reception. It's the annual charity gala, Victoria explained. All the major players will be there. It's important that you and Adrian present as a strong, stable couple. We've done events before. Not like this. This is the first major public appearance since the wedding. Everyone will be watching, analyzing, looking for cracks. You'll need to be perfect. Perfect. Lena was so tired of that word. The night of the gala, Lena stood in front of her mirror in a dress that probably cost more than her grandmother's surgery. Deep red, elegant, the kind of thing that demanded attention. Victoria had outdone herself. Adrian met her at the top of the stairs, and for a moment he just stared. You look... He trailed off. Like I cost you a fortune? Lena supplied. Like you belong here. He offered his arm. Ready? Not even a little bit. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. The gala was held at the city's most prestigious hotel, in a ballroom that looked like something out of a movie. Hundreds of people in formal wear, champagne flowing like water, an orchestra playing in the corner. wealth and power condensed into a single, overwhelming space. The moment they entered, conversations paused. Eyes tracked their movement. Lena felt like she was on display, a specimen being examined for flaws. Adrian kept her close, his hand on her lower back, steering her through the crowd with practiced ease. They stopped to talk to important people, politicians who pretended not to know what Adrian really did, businessmen who were definitely on his payroll, socialites who measured Lena against some invisible standard and found her wanting. "You're doing well," Adrian murmured during a brief moment alone. "Better than well. I'm faking it. So is everyone else here. You're just better at not showing it." They were approached by a woman Lena had never seen before. Stunning, poised, wearing a dress that made Lena's look pedestrian. She smiled at Adrian with the kind of familiarity that set off alarm bells. "Adrian, it's been too long." Adrian's entire body went rigid. "Isabel, I didn't know you were in town. I came as soon as I heard about your marriage. Had to see for myself if it was true." Isabel's eyes slid to Lena, assessing and finding her lacking. "So this is the infamous bride. How lovely." "Lena, this is Isabelle Laurent. We used to be acquainted." The way he said acquainted told Lena everything she needed to know. This was the ex, the one Adrian had carefully never mentioned in any of their late-night conversations. "Charmed," Isabel said, though her tone suggested she was anything but. "Tell me, how did you two meet? Adrian's always been so private about his personal life." "Through mutual circumstances," Lena said carefully. "Sometimes these things happen when you least expect them." "How romantic! And here I thought Adrian was incapable of surprise." Isabel turned her full attention back to Adrian. "We should talk, privately. There are things we need to discuss. I'm with my wife, and I'm sure she won't mind if we catch up for a few minutes. Will you, dear?" Lena absolutely minded, but she couldn't say that without looking weak. "Of course not." Adrian's hand tightened on her back. "Lena, it's fine. I'll be at the bar." She walked away before he could argue, feeling Isabel's victorious smile burning into her back. At the bar, she ordered something strong and tried to ignore the way her chest hurt. Stupid. This was a business arrangement. Adrian's past relationships were none of her concern. That was brave. Natasha appeared at Lena's elbow. "Or stupid, I haven't decided which." "What are you talking about?" "Letting Isabel get her claws into Adrian again. She's wanted him back for years." "They dated?" "Dated, engaged, nearly married, until Adrian found out she was feeding information to his competitors. Cost him a fortune and nearly destroyed several key alliances. He cut her off completely, but she's been circling ever since, waiting for an opening." Lena's stomach dropped. "And I just gave her one." "You didn't have much choice. She would have made a scene if you'd refused. Better to look confident than desperate." Natasha sipped her champagne. "Still, might want to rescue your husband before she convinces him she's changed." Lena found them on a balcony, Isabel standing too close, Adrian looking uncomfortable in a way she'd never seen him. "Sorry to interrupt," Lena said, not sorry at all. "But Adrian, there are people asking for you." "This is a private conversation," Isabel said sharply. "This is my husband." Lena met her eyes. "And I'm done sharing." For a moment, Isabel looked like she might actually start a fight. Then she smiled, cold and calculating. "Of course, family first. But Adrian, do think about what I said. Some opportunities don't come twice." When she was gone, Adrian exhaled slowly. "That was your ex-fiancé who betrayed you?" "Yeah, Natasha filled me in. I should have warned you she might be here." "You should have told me about her at all." Lena turned to face him fully. "How many other important details are you keeping from me?" "Lena." "No, actually I don't want to know. This is a business arrangement. Your past is your past. I shouldn't care." "But you do." Adrian moved closer. "Why do you care?" "I don't know." The admission burst out of her. "I'm not supposed to. This was supposed to be simple. 6 months, smile for the cameras, take the money, and run. But somewhere between security briefings and late-night conversations and watching you nearly collapse, trying to prove you're not broken, it stopped being simple." "Lena." Adrian's voice was rough. We can't. Can't what? Can't be honest?" Can't admit that this stopped being just business weeks ago? Can't complicate this more than it already is. You're supposed to walk away in 5 months. Free and clear, back to your normal life. If we... He stopped, jaw tight. If we what? If we cross that line, everything changes, and I won't trap you in my world more than I already have. What if I'm already trapped? Lena asked quietly. What if it's too late for keeping distance? Adrian stared at her, and Lena saw the war happening behind his eyes. Want versus sense, need versus protection. All the reasons this was a terrible idea, fighting against something that felt increasingly inevitable. Then someone screamed inside the ballroom. They rushed back to find chaos. People running, shouting, security moving in organized patterns that suggested training and threat. Marcus appeared, gun drawn. Dimitri's people, they breached the north entrance. Boss, we need to get you out of here. Lena, I'm on it. Marcus grabbed Lena's arm. Come on. Safe room protocols. What about Adrian? I can handle myself, Adrian said, his voice switching to command mode. Marcus, get her to the car. Now. What happened next happened fast. Marcus pulled Lena through the crowd, through a service entrance toward the parking garage. Behind them, gunshots. Screaming. The kind of violence Adrian had been waiting for finally arriving in spectacular fashion. They made it to the car, armored, black, the kind of vehicle built for exactly this scenario. Marcus shoved Lena into the back seat and slid into the driver's seat, engine roaring to life. Where's Adrian? Lena demanded. He'll have his own exit route. My job is getting you safe. They peeled out of the garage, and Lena looked back to see smoke rising from the hotel. People running into the street. And somewhere in that chaos, Adrian, still recovering, still vulnerable, facing down the man who'd tried to kill him once before. We have to go back. No chance. Boss's orders were clear. I don't care about his orders. Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. You care about him. That's the problem. That's exactly what he was afraid would happen. Lena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your husband is a dead man, and so are you. She showed it to Marcus. He cursed and drove faster. Welcome to the real world, Marcus said grimly, where happy endings don't exist and the people you care about get you killed. Lena stared at the message, then back at the smoke rising behind them, and realized that everything was about to change. The careful distance she and Adrian had maintained, the professional boundaries, the pretense that this was just business, all of it was burning down along with the hotel. And somewhere in the flames, the man she wasn't supposed to care about was fighting for his life. The safe house was an apartment in a building that looked abandoned from the outside, but was anything but. Marcus swept each room with his gun drawn before letting Lena more than 3 feet past the entrance. Stay away from the windows, he ordered. Don't turn on lights. Don't make noise. And for the love of everything, don't try to leave. Where's Adrian? I don't know yet. He'll contact us when it's safe. Marcus was already on his phone, texting rapidly. Until then, we sit tight. Lena sat on a couch that smelled like dust and old cigarettes, still in her ridiculous gala dress, and tried not to think about all the ways Adrian could be dying right now. The gunshots, the smoke, Dimitri's people breaching security specifically to get to him. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. TikTok, Mrs. Voss? She showed it to Marcus without a word. He cursed and made a call. Yeah, it's me. She's getting threats. Trace the numbers. A pause. I don't care if it takes all night. Find out who's sending them and where they are. This is because I was at the gala, Lena said quietly. Because I stood next to him, played the wife. I made myself a target. You were already a target the second you signed that contract. Tonight just made it official. Marcus sat down across from her, gun still in hand. Listen, I'm going to tell you something the boss would kill me for saying. Adrian knew this would happen eventually. The attack, the escalation, all of it. That's why he wanted someone like you. No connections to this world. No real ties. Someone who could walk away after 6 months without looking back. But I don't think he counted on actually giving a damn about you. And I know he didn't count on you giving a damn about him. Lena's throat tightened. I'm not supposed to. Yeah, well, supposed to and reality are two different things. I've worked for Adrian for 8 years. I've never seen him look at someone the way he looks at you. Like he's terrified you're going to disappear and relieved you're still here all at the same time. We're not, save it. I've got eyes. So does everyone else in the organization. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Lena could answer, Marcus's phone rang. He answered immediately. Talk to me. His expression shifted as he listened. Copy that. We're secure. He hung up and looked at Lena. Adrian's alive. He's on his way here. The relief was so intense that Lena felt dizzy. Is he hurt? He didn't say. With him, that could mean anything from fine to bleeding out and refusing to admit it. 20 minutes later, the door opened and Adrian walked in, and Lena's heart stopped. He was covered in blood. Not his own, at least she hoped not, and his suit was torn, but he was moving under his own power. Behind him, Torres and 2 other security guards filed in. Clear the room, Adrian said. Everyone out except Lena. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but apparently knew better. We'll be right outside. You need anything. I need everyone to stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Adrian's voice was sharp enough to cut. Out! Now! When they were alone, the controlled facade Adrian had been maintaining crumbled. He leaned heavily against the wall, breathing hard, and Lena saw the pain he'd been hiding from his people. You're hurt. I'm fine. You're covered in blood. Most of it's not mine. He pushed away from the wall and started toward the bathroom. There's a first aid kit under the sink. I need you to check if I'm bleeding anywhere I can't see. Lena followed him into the small bathroom. Adrian shrugged off his ruined jacket and started unbuttoning his shirt with shaking hands. When the shirt came off, Lena saw new bruises blooming across his ribs, a cut on his shoulder that was definitely bleeding. What happened? Dimitri's people came in hard, 6 of them, maybe more. We got separated in the chaos. I ended up in a service corridor with 3 of them. Adrian sat on the edge of the bathtub. I handled it. Handled it meaning what? Meaning they won't be a problem anymore. His voice was flat, and Lena understood. He'd killed them. 3 men, dead because they'd tried to finish what Dimitri started. She found the first aid kit and started cleaning the cut on his shoulder. Her hands were steadier than she expected. This needs stitches. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. Lena worked in silence for a moment. Isabel was at the gala. Did you see her after the attack? Adrian's jaw tightened. She left before the shooting started. Convenient timing. You think she was involved? I think Isabel does nothing without calculating the angles. Her showing up tonight right before Dimitri makes his move? That's not coincidence. What did she want when you talked to her? To remind me what I gave up when I cut her out of my life. To suggest we could work together again, that she'd changed. Adrian looked at Lena. And to see if my marriage was real or strategic. What did you tell her? Nothing. You interrupted before I had to answer. Lena finished cleaning the cut and started bandaging it. For what it's worth, I'm glad I interrupted. Why? Because I didn't like the way she looked at you. Like you were something she owned and was just temporarily lending out. Adrian caught her wrist, stopping her movements. Lena, what are we doing? I'm bandaging your shoulder. You know what I mean? Lena met his eyes. I don't know, I just know that when Marcus told me you were alive, I could breathe again. And that scares me more than the death threats. It should scare you. Getting attached to me is the worst decision you could make. Too late. Adrian pulled her closer, and Lena let him, until she was standing between his knees and his hands were on her waist, and the space between them felt charged with everything they'd been trying not to say. This is a terrible idea, Adrian said. Probably the worst. The contract doesn't say anything about what happens when one of us stops pretending. Adrian's thumb traced small circles on her hip. You could still walk away. 5 months, take the money, disappear. I'd make sure you were protected, set up somewhere safe. You don't have to stay in this. What if I want to stay? Then you're crazier than I thought. Lena laughed despite everything. You hired a civilian to marry you and stand between you and your enemies. I think we're both pretty crazy. Adrian stood, still holding her, and Lena had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. This close, she could see every scar, every line of pain, every sign of the violence he'd survived. And somehow that made him more real, more human than the controlled facade he showed everyone else. If we do this, he said quietly, if we make this real, there's no going back. You'll be tied to me and my world in ways the contract never covered. People will come after you to hurt me. Your life will never be normal again. My life stopped being normal the day I walked into that coffee shop and signed an NDA. And I think we both know it's been real for a while now. We were just too stubborn to admit it. Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone without it being a transaction or a strategy. Then we figure it out together. Lena covered his hand with hers. No more pretending. No more distance. Just us. Whatever that looks like. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the sterile brush of lips at their wedding. This was raw and desperate, weeks of tension finally breaking. Lena kissed him back, her hands fisting in what remained of his shirt, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this. Adrian alive, Adrian here, Adrian choosing her for real instead of just convenience. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is still a terrible idea. Yeah, but I'm done with good ideas. They haven't gotten me very far. A knock on the bathroom door interrupted them. Marcus's voice. Boss, we've got a situation. Adrian stepped back, the moment breaking. What kind of situation? The kind where someone just sent a reporter everything about your contract marriage. It's going to hit the news tomorrow morning. Lena felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. What? Adrian was already moving, back to command mode despite the fresh bandage on his shoulder. Who leaked it? Working on it, but whoever it was had access to the original contract, wedding photos, financial records, everything. They filed back into the main room where Torres had a laptop open, showing a preview of the article. The headline, Crime Boss's Fake Marriage, Inside Adrian Voss's $1 million Arrangement. Lena read the first few paragraphs and felt sick. They had everything. The amount she'd been paid, the terms of the contract, even details about her grandmother's surgery. Someone had taken their private arrangement and turned it into a weapon. Isabel, Adrian said quietly. She's the only one outside my inner circle who knew about the contract structure. How would she get the actual documents? Marcus asked. Because I was stupid enough to keep copies in my office at the hotel. Same office Dimitri's people would have accessed during the attack. Adrian's voice was cold. She played us. The appearance at the gala, the private conversation, all of it was distraction while her people grabbed what they needed. So what do we do? Lena asked. How do we fight this? We don't. Adrian closed the laptop. We let it run. What? Adrian, this will destroy everything we've built. Your reputation, your standing with the organization, was already compromised the moment I got stabbed and had to marry a stranger to prove I wasn't weak. This just accelerates the timeline. He turned to Marcus. Call a meeting, everyone, tomorrow morning. I want every key player in my organization there. Boss, with respect, maybe you should think about this. I've thought about it. The story breaks tomorrow. I want to control the narrative before it controls me. After Marcus left to make the calls, Lena grabbed Adrian's arm. What are you planning? To stop pretending. He looked at her. You said no more distance, no more fake. Fine. Tomorrow, I tell everyone the truth. The truth being what, exactly? That yes, our marriage started as a contract. Yes, I paid you, but somewhere along the way, it became something else. Something real. Adrian's expression was fierce. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. I'm done playing defense. That's insane. They'll see it as weakness. Maybe. Or maybe they'll see it as strength, that I'm confident enough to admit when circumstances change. He pulled her closer. I'm not giving you up because some reporter got a hold of papers. I'm not letting Dimitri and Isabel destroy what we've built. If we're doing this, we do it honestly. No more contracts, no more arrangements, just a choice to be together despite everything trying to tear us apart. You could lose your empire. I could lose you. That's worse. Lena stared at him. When did you become willing to risk everything for this? Probably around the time you walked into that first meeting and called me out on my bullshit. Or when you helped me through that meeting with Dimitri without flinching. Or when you barged into my room to check if I was okay, even though I told you to leave me alone. Adrian smiled, and it was almost genuine. Pick a moment. They all add up to the same conclusion. You're not just some woman I hired. You're the person who saw me at my worst and didn't run. That's worth more than any empire. The next morning, Lena stood next to Adrian in the conference room where his entire organization had gathered. Every key player, every dangerous person who kept his world running. And now they all knew the truth about the contract marriage. The room was silent as Adrian stood at the head of the table. Lena noticed he'd left the cane behind, standing on his own despite the pain it clearly cost him. "By now you've all seen the article," Adrian began. "The reporter got most of it right. Lena and I married because of a contract. I paid her $1 million to play my wife for 6 months. The goal was to project stability while I recovered." Murmurs rippled through the room. Dmitri, sitting near the back with a smile that made Lena want to punch him, looked particularly pleased. "What the article doesn't mention," Adrian continued, his voice cutting through the noise, "is that circumstances changed. What started as business became personal. Lena isn't just my contract wife anymore. She's my actual wife, so my partner, and anyone who tries to use her to get to me will discover exactly how seriously I take threats to my family." "Family?" Dmitri laughed. "Adrian, come on, this is embarrassing. You bought yourself a wife because you were too weak to stand on your own, and now you're trying to spin it as some kind of love story?" "I'm not spinning anything. I'm telling you the facts. Yes, I was weak. I got stabbed, nearly died, and needed time to recover. I made a strategic decision to protect my position while I healed. That was smart, not weak. And falling for the woman you hired, what was that? Human." Adrian's voice was steady. "Something you might understand if you were capable of seeing people as anything other than assets to exploit. Careful, Adrian. You're in no position to— I'm in every position." Adrian stepped forward, and Lena saw several hands move toward weapons. "I've spent 3 months recovering, rebuilding, getting stronger. In that time, I've consolidated power you didn't even know I had access to. I let you think you were winning, let you get comfortable making moves against me. And now I'm done being patient." Marcus stepped forward, placing a folder on the table in front of Dmitri. "That's documentation of every illegal shipment you've moved through the port in the last 6 months. Every bribe, every transaction, every violation of the agreements that let you operate in this city. One call to the right people, and you're done." Dmitri opened the folder, and Lena watched his expression change. "You wouldn't. I would. I'm giving you a choice. Back off, return what you took, and continue operating under the terms we've always had. Or push me, and I'll burn your entire operation to the ground. That would start a war." "Yes," Adrian agreed. "And I'm prepared for that." "Are you?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Everyone in the room was calculating, weighing risks, deciding whether to back Adrian or abandon him. Lena held her breath. Finally, Natasha spoke. "I'm with Adrian. Anyone who has a problem with his marriage can take it up with me." One by one, others voiced their support. Not everyone. Lena could see resistance in several faces, but enough. Enough to tip the balance. Dmitri stood slowly. "This isn't over." "No," Adrian agreed, "but you're out of moves. Accept it and move on, or double down and lose everything. Your choice." Dmitri left without another word, his people following. When the door closed behind them, the tension in the room eased slightly. Adrian addressed the remaining group. "I know this changes things. I know some of you have questions about my judgment, my priorities. All I can tell you is that I'm still the same person who built this organization. I'm still capable, still strategic, still willing to do what's necessary. The only difference is I'm done pretending I don't have vulnerabilities. We all have them. Mine just happens to be sitting next to me." Lena felt her face heat as everyone's attention turned to her. "She's proven herself," Marcus added. "She stood up to Dmitri, handled Natasha's interrogation, survived an attack at the gala. If the boss trusts her, that's good enough for me." The meeting dissolved into smaller conversations, people approaching Adrian to discuss business or offer support. Lena slipped out to the hallway, needing air, needing space to process what had just happened. Adrian had chosen her, publicly, definitively, risking everything to make their relationship real. She found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. A text from her grandmother. "Saw the news. Are you okay? Call me." Lena called. "Sweetheart, what's going on? The article says your marriage was fake, that you were paid." "It was, Gran. At first, I needed money for your surgery, and Adrian needed a wife. It was a business arrangement." "Was? It's not anymore. Somewhere along the way it became real. I fell for him, and I think he fell for me too. So now we're trying to figure out what that means. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Is he good to you? He's complicated, damaged, dangerous. But yes, he's good to me, better than I expected. Then that's all that matters. I don't care how it started. I care how it continues. His world is violent, Gran. People tried to kill us at a charity gala. Someone leaked our contract to destroy his reputation. This isn't the normal life you wanted for me. Normal is overrated. Happy is what counts. Are you happy? Lena thought about Adrian's hand on her waist, his willingness to risk his empire, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. I think I could be, if we survive long enough to figure it out. Then survive. And call me more often. I worry. After hanging up, Lena found Adrian in his study, staring at reports he probably wasn't actually reading. Your people didn't all turn on you, she observed. Not yet. Give them time. Once Dmitri regroups and makes his next move, loyalties will be tested. You think he'll escalate? I know he will. Men like Dmitri don't back down from humiliation. He'll come at me harder, smarter. Probably target you directly since I made it clear you matter. Lena sat down across from him. So what do? We prepare. Tighten security, shore up alliances, make sure we see him coming. Adrian set down the reports. And we decide if this is really what you want. Because once we're past this point, once you're fully part of my world, there's no clean exit. You'll always be connected to me, always be a target. Even if we ended things, even if you left, people would still see you as my weakness. Is that what I am? Your weakness? You're my everything. Adrian said it simply, like stating a fact. Which in this world, yes, makes you my greatest vulnerability. Then we make it a strength. Lena leaned forward. Stop seeing me as something to protect, and start seeing me as a partner. Teach me how to really survive here, not just smile at parties, but actually understand your world. Let me be useful instead of just decorative. That would put you in more danger, not less. I'm already in danger. At least if I know what I'm doing, I can fight back. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You're serious? Completely. You stood up in front of your entire organization and claimed me as family. Now let me actually be part of it. He stood and moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. If I do this, if I bring you in fully, you'll see things you can't unsee. You'll be complicit in things that would have horrified the woman who walked into Carmen's coffee shop 3 months ago. Can you handle that? I don't know. But I'd rather try and find out than spend the next however long being kept in the dark and protected like I'm made of glass. You're not made of glass. Adrian turned back to her. You're made of something much more dangerous. You're made of the kind of stubborn determination that doesn't know when to quit. It's either going to save us or get us both killed. Let's aim for saving. Over the next week, Adrian was true to his word. He brought Lena to meetings she'd previously been excluded from, explained the coded language, the power structures, the delicate balance of alliances that kept his empire running. She learned which shipments were legitimate and which weren't, where the money actually came from, how deeply his organization was woven into the city's infrastructure. It was worse than she'd imagined, and somehow also more mundane. Yes, there was violence and criminal activity, but there was also paperwork, bureaucracy, the same kind of tedious business management you'd find in any corporation, just with higher stakes and occasionally deadly consequences for failure. You're frowning, Adrian observed during one particularly long financial review. I'm just realizing that being a crime boss is actually kind of boring. Marcus, sitting across the table, laughed. That's what everyone thinks until the exciting parts happen. Then they wish it was boring again. As if summoned by the mention, exciting parts arrived the next day in the form of a phone call. Adrian listened, his expression growing darker by the second. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Lock it down. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Marcus. Dmitri hit the warehouse on 5th. Burned it. 3 of our people are dead. The room went cold. Lena watched Adrian transform from the man she'd been getting to know into something else entirely. The person who'd survived being stabbed 8 times and built an empire through sheer will. He's declaring war, Marcus said. Then we respond accordingly. Adrian was already moving. Lena, you stay here. Torres, double the security on the estate. No one in or out without my explicit approval. Adrian, Lena started, not this time. This is the part where you being useful means staying alive. He stopped long enough to kiss her, hard and quick. I'll be back. He was gone before she could argue, taking Marcus and half the security detail with him. Torres supervised the lockdown with military precision. Additional guards at every entrance, the security system upgraded to maximum alert, protocols Lena had learned during her briefing now being activated in real time. How bad is this going to get? Lena asked Torres as they watched the monitors. Depends on how far Dmitri wants to push it. Could be isolated incidents meant to send a message. Could be full-scale war. Torres glanced at her. You scared? Terrified, but also angry. 3 people died because Dmitri's ego can't handle being told no. Welcome to Adrian's world, where egos kill more people than actual threats. Hours passed with no word from Adrian. Lena paced, watched the monitors, tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Her phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, nothing. Finally, near midnight, the gates opened and Adrian's car returned. Lena met him at the door, relief and fury warring in her chest. 3 people, she said instead of hello. Dmitri killed 3 people just to make a point. I know. Adrian looked exhausted. We've secured the other warehouses, doubled security on key personnel. It won't happen again. What did you do? After you found out? Adrian's expression went carefully blank. What needed to be done? That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. He moved past her toward his study. I need to make calls, coordinate responses. It's going to be a long night. Lena followed him. You can't shut me out now. You said you'd bring me in, let me be part of this. Being part of this doesn't mean witnessing every ugly thing I have to do to keep us safe. Yes, it does. That's exactly what it means. Lena moved to stand in front of his desk. You don't get to cherry pick which parts of your world I see. Either I'm in or I'm not. Adrian stared at her, and Lena saw the war happening behind his eyes. Finally, I sent a message back, hit one of Dmitri's operations, proportional response. No one died, but he'll know we're not backing down. Just property damage? Just property damage, Adrian confirmed. For now. But if he escalates again, if he comes after anyone else I care about. He didn't finish the sentence. You'd kill him. Without hesitation. And I'd do it myself instead of delegating it. Adrian's voice was cold. That's who I am, Lena. The man who burns down empires when someone threatens his family. Are you sure that's what you want to be part of? Lena thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago. Broke, desperate, willing to do anything to save her grandmother. That woman would have run screaming from this moment, but she wasn't that woman anymore. Yes, she said, I'm sure. Something in Adrian's expression cracked. He pulled her around the desk and into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. You're going to regret this. Probably, but I'd regret leaving more. They stood there in his study, holding on to each other while Adrian's phone kept buzzing with updates and demands and the endless crisis management of keeping an empire from collapsing. Outside, guards patrolled and security systems monitored every shadow. Somewhere in the city, Dmitri was planning his next move. And somewhere even closer, someone had leaked their contract to the press, turned their private arrangement into public ammunition. But for this moment, in this space, none of that mattered. Lena had made her choice. Adrian had made his. Everything else was just details they'd handle as they came. Or at least, that's what Lena told herself as Adrian's phone rang again with news of another problem, another threat, another crack in the careful world they were trying to build together. The call that changed everything came at 4 a.m. 2 days later. Adrian's phone shattered the silence, and Lena woke to find him already sitting up, listening with an expression that made her blood run cold. You're certain? A pause. Don't move. I'm coming. He was out of bed and dressing before Lena could ask what was wrong. Adrian, what happened? They found the leak. The person who gave the press our contract details. He pulled on a shirt, not bothering with buttons. It wasn't Isabel. Then who? Victoria. Lena felt like she'd been punched. Victoria, who'd recruited her, who'd orchestrated everything, who'd been Adrian's trusted advisor from the beginning. That's not possible. Marcus caught her trying to access my secure files. She's been working with Dimitri for months. The contract leak, the gala attack timing, all of it. Adrian grabbed his jacket. Stay here. Don't leave the estate. I'm coming with you. Lena, no. You said I'm in this now. That means all of it. I need to see this. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Lena's expression must have convinced him. Fine, but you stay behind me. You do exactly what I say, and if things go wrong, you run. Understood? They found Victoria in one of the safe houses across the city, secured in a chair with Marcus standing guard. She looked different without her usual polished composure, hair disheveled, makeup smeared, fear in her eyes that she couldn't quite hide. Adrian, Victoria's voice was steady despite everything. I suppose explanations are pointless at this stage. Try anyway. Adrian's voice was ice. You've worked for me for 6 years. I trusted you with everything. Why? Because Dimitri offered me something you never could. Freedom. A way out of this life with enough money to disappear. Victoria met his eyes. I'm tired, Adrian. Tired of the violence, the constant fear, the endless calculations. Dimitri promised me an exit if I helped him bring you down. And you believed him? Marcus's laugh was bitter. Dimitri doesn't let people walk away. You know that. I know that Adrian doesn't either. At least with Dimitri I had a chance. Lena stepped forward before she could stop herself. You recruited me. You brought me into this knowing I'd be caught in the crossfire. Those threats I got, the attack at the gala, you knew those would happen. Victoria finally looked away. I didn't know about the gala. Dimitri moved faster than I expected. That wasn't part of the plan. What was the plan? Adrian asked quietly. Walk me through it. All of it. Dimitri wanted you weakened, distracted. I suggested the contract marriage, someone with no connections who could be easily discredited later. We'd leak it at the right moment, destroy your credibility, make your organization question your judgment. Between that and Dimitri's attacks, you'd be forced out or killed. Either way, I'd get paid and disappear. Except I didn't get forced out. I got stronger. Adrian moved closer. And the marriage became real. You didn't count on that. No one counted on that. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. You were supposed to keep your distance, use her as a prop. But you fell for her. The great Adrian Voss brought down by actual feelings. Dimitri was furious when he realized. Is that why he escalated? The warehouse? The continued threats? He's desperate. You're not playing by the expected rules. Men like you aren't supposed to choose love over power. It makes you unpredictable, dangerous in ways he didn't prepare for. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Lena watched him process, calculate, decide what to do with someone who'd betrayed him completely. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, to see what kind of man he really was when pushed to the edge. Where's Dimitri now? Adrian finally asked. I don't know. He moves locations constantly, paranoid that you'll... Victoria stopped. That I'll do to him what he tried to do to me? Adrian's smile was cold. Smart paranoia. Marcus, call everyone. Full assembly in 2 hours. I want every person in my organization there. Boss, what are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to end this. All of it. Adrian looked at Victoria. You're going to help me. Why would I do that? Because I'm going to offer you something Dimitri never would. Actual freedom. You help me finish this and you get to walk away. New identity, enough money to start over, completely clean break. But you betray me again, and there won't be anywhere in the world you can hide. Are we clear? Victoria stared at him. You're serious. I'm tired too, Victoria. Tired of the constant war, the endless vigilance. I'm ready for things to change. But that can't happen while Dimitri's still breathing down my neck. So help me end him, and we both get what we want. The assembly was held in the same conference room where Adrian had faced down his organization about the contract marriage. But this time, the energy was different. There was no uncertainty, no question about his leadership, just tense anticipation about what he'd say. Adrian stood at the head of the table with Lena beside him, Marcus on his other side. Victoria, under guard, near the back. I'm done fighting Dmitri Kozlov, Adrian began, and the room erupted in murmurs. He raised a hand for silence. Not because I'm surrendering, because I'm ending this permanently. He's pushed too far, cost too many lives, destabilized everything we've built. It stops today. How? Natasha asked. He's fortified his positions. Going after him directly would be a bloodbath. Not if we're smart about it. Victoria has been feeding Dmitri information about our operations. Now she's going to feed him exactly what we want him to know. Adrian nodded to Victoria, who stood on shaking legs. Dmitri thinks I'm still working for him, Victoria explained. I can tell him Adrian is vulnerable, isolated, planning to meet with key suppliers at a specific location. He'll come himself. He won't be able to resist the opportunity to finish this face-to-face. And then? Someone asked. Then we have a conversation, Adrian said. One where he realizes he's out of options. You're going to negotiate with him? Dmitri's voice came from the doorway, and everyone's weapons were drawn in an instant. He stood there flanked by 4 guards, hands raised in a gesture of peace that fooled no one. Relax. I'm here to talk, not fight. For now. Adrian didn't move, didn't flinch. How did you get past security? Victoria gave me the codes weeks ago, insurance policy. Dmitri smiled. I've been listening to your whole speech. Very touching, planning to use my own person against me. But you're forgetting something. Victoria works for whoever pays her most. And I just doubled her price. Everyone looked at Victoria, who had gone white. Dmitri, that wasn't... Shut up. The adults are talking. Dmitri's attention was solely on Adrian now. Here's how this works. You step down, hand over your territory, your operations, everything. Retire to whatever life you think you can build with your contract bride. In exchange, I let you both live. Keep refusing, and I'll kill everyone you care about until there's nothing left to protect. No. Adrian's voice was calm. You won't. You seem very confident for someone surrounded by my guns. You seem very confident for someone who just walked into a room full of people who want you dead. Adrian gestured around the table. Every person here has lost something because of you. Money, territory, people they cared about. You think they're going to let you walk out of here? I think you're going to call them off because you know what happens if you don't. I have people positioned at your wife's grandmother's hospital, your legitimate businesses. Every soft target you've tried to protect. One word from me, and they burn. Lena felt her stomach drop. Her grandmother. He was threatening her grandmother. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena saw his hand clench. You won't do it. Try me. Because killing civilians, burning hospitals, that crosses lines even in our world. The moment you do that, you become a pariah. Everyone turns against you. You lose everything you've built trying to destroy me. Dmitri's smile faltered slightly. You're bluffing. No, I'm stating facts. You've already pushed too hard, killed too many people, caused too much chaos. The only reason you're still operating is because I haven't called in every favor I'm owed to end you. But threaten my family? Threaten innocent people who have nothing to do with this? Adrian's voice dropped to something dangerous. That's the line where I stop being strategic and start being personal. And you don't want to see what I'm capable of when it's personal. The silence was absolute. Lena barely breathed, watching the standoff between 2 men who'd been circling each other for months. Finally, Dmitri laughed, but it sounded forced. So what then? We keep dancing around each other forever, neither of us backing down? No, we end it right here. Right now. Adrian pulled out his phone, made a call. Send it. Within seconds, everyone's phones in the room buzzed. Dmitri pulled out his own phone and his face went gray. What is this? Evidence. Every illegal transaction you've ever made. Every bribe, every murder, every violation of the codes that let you operate in this city, compiled, verified, and currently being delivered to federal prosecutors, state police, and several very interested journalists. You wouldn't. That would implicate you too. Not if I've already negotiated immunity. Adrian's smile was sharp. I've been talking to the FBI for weeks. They're very interested in building cases against organized crime. I offered them you on a silver platter in exchange for looking the other way on my legitimate operations. They agreed. Lena stared at Adrian. He'd been planning this the whole time. The meeting, the confrontation, all of it was theater leading to this moment. You're lying, Dmitri said, but his voice shook. The agents outside would disagree. They've been waiting for my signal. Adrian made another call. We're ready. The doors burst open and federal agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Dmitri's guards dropped their guns immediately, hands up. Dmitri himself looked like he was calculating whether to fight or run, but there was nowhere to go. Dmitry Kozlov, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. The agent kept reading charges as they cuffed him. As they dragged Dmitry out, he locked eyes with Adrian. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Adrian's voice was final. You're done, and I'm moving on. When the agents were gone, taking Dmitry and Victoria both, she'd cut her own deal, apparently, the room erupted. People talking over each other, demanding explanations, trying to understand what had just happened. Marcus held up a hand for quiet. The boss has something to say. Adrian took a breath, and Lena saw exhaustion and relief warring on his face. I'm stepping back. Not stepping down, but stepping back. I've spent 8 years building this empire through violence and fear. I'm tired of it. I want something different. Different how? Natasha asked carefully. Legitimate. No more illegal operations. We transition everything to legal business over the next year. Anyone who wants out gets paid and walks. Anyone who wants to stay helps me rebuild into something that doesn't require looking over our shoulders constantly. That's, someone started. Crazy? Probably. Impossible? Maybe, but I'm doing it anyway. Adrian looked around the room. I almost died. I married a stranger to prove I was still strong. And somewhere in that mess, I figured out that strength isn't about how much power you hold or how many people fear you. It's about choosing the life you actually want instead of the one you think you need. He reached for Lena's hand. I want a life with her. A real one. Not one built on contracts and arrangements. That means getting out of the shadows, making things right, becoming someone she doesn't have to make excuses for. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't the ending she'd expected when she signed that contract 4 months ago. But somehow it was exactly what she needed. The meeting dissolved slowly. People came up to Adrian with questions, concerns, pledges of loyalty, or requests to leave. He handled each one with patience Lena didn't know he possessed. Finally, when the room was empty except for them and Marcus, Lena asked the question that had been burning in her mind. When did you start planning this? The FBI deal, all of it. The day after the gala attack. When I realized Dmitry wasn't going to stop, and I was tired of living like prey. Adrian sat down heavily. I reached out through channels I'd kept separate from my main operations, offered them Dmitry and Victoria in exchange for immunity for transitioning my businesses to legitimate operations. Took weeks to negotiate, but they agreed. You could have told me, and risk you being implicated if it went wrong? Not a chance. He pulled her into his lap and Lena went, curling against him. I needed you safe. That was non-negotiable. What happens now? Now we figure out what normal looks like. I've got legitimate businesses that need managing. You've got a nursing degree to finish. We've got a marriage that started as a lie but became something real. The contract expires in a month, Lena pointed out. Technically, I could walk away. You could. Adrian's arms tightened around her. Are you going to? Lena thought about the woman who'd walked into Carmen's coffee shop, desperate and drowning. That woman had made a deal with the devil to save someone she loved. But the woman sitting here now had found something she hadn't been looking for. A partner who saw her completely and chose her anyway. A life that was messy and complicated, but entirely hers. No, she said finally. I'm not walking away, but I think we should redo this. Do it right this time. What do you mean? I mean, marry me again. Not because of money or contracts or proving anything to anyone, just because we want to. Adrian pulled back to look at her. You want to marry me again? I want to marry you for real. The first time was survival. This time would be choice. That's possibly the craziest thing you've ever suggested, says the man who hired a stranger to be his wife. Adrian laughed, and it sounded free in a way Lena had never heard from him. Okay, yes, let's get married again, but this time I'm writing the vows. The second wedding happened 6 weeks later, after the FBI had finished with Dmitry's prosecution and the media frenzy had died down. It was small, just Marcus, Natasha, a few of Adrian's people who'd proven loyal, and Lena's grandmother who'd recovered enough to attend. They held it in the estate's garden, under trees that were just starting to bloom. No judge this time. Just a minister who didn't ask too many questions, and 2 people who'd found each other through the worst circumstances and decided to stay anyway. Lena wore a simple white dress, nothing like the expensive gown from the first wedding. Adrian wore a suit but no tie, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. When it came time for vows, Adrian took both her hands. I'm not good at this. Words, feelings, any of it. But you already know that. You've seen me at my worst, broken, angry, terrified. You didn't run. You stayed. You pushed back. You made me want to be better than the man I was. His voice cracked slightly. I can't promise you easy. I can't promise you safe. But I can promise you honest. I can promise you that every day I'm going to choose you, choose us, choose the life we're building instead of the one I thought I needed. That's the best I can do. Lena blinked back tears. That's more than enough. My turn? Adrian nodded, not trusting his voice. 4 months ago, I made a deal because I was desperate. I agreed to marry you for money, for survival, for 6 months of pretending. But you became real when I wasn't looking. You became the person I wanted to check on, to understand, to protect, even when you didn't think you needed protecting. She squeezed his hands. I'm not promising to always agree with you. I'm not promising to be easy or convenient or the kind of wife who stays quiet, but I'm promising to stay, to build this life with you, to figure out what normal looks like when neither of us really knows, and to love you, not despite who you are, but because of it, all of it. The minister pronounced them married, and this time when Adrian kissed her, it was nothing like the sterile brush of lips from the first ceremony. It was real and messy and perfect. The reception was held in the same ballroom where they'd held the first one, but everything was different. No performance, no posturing, no enemies disguised as guests. Just people who actually cared about them, celebrating something genuine. Lena found her grandmother sitting near the edge of the dance floor, watching everything with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He's good for you, Eleanor said when Lena sat down beside her. I wasn't sure at first. The contract thing scared me. But seeing you two together now? That's real. It is. Terrifyingly real. Good. Real is what matters. I don't care how you got here. I care that you're happy. I am. I really am. Then that's all I ever wanted for you. Someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway. Eleanor patted Lena's hand. Now go dance with your husband before he comes over here and asks me embarrassing questions about your childhood. Adrian was already approaching, and Lena laughed. Too late for that. The months that followed were harder than either of them expected. Transitioning Adrian's operations to legitimate businesses meant unwinding years of illegal infrastructure. Some of his people left. Some stayed. There were setbacks and complications and moments where Lena wondered if they'd bitten off more than they could handle. But there were also victories. Adrian's legitimate businesses started turning real profits. Lena enrolled back in nursing school, finishing her degree while helping Adrian navigate the legal world he'd never operated in before. They fought about stupid things like normal couples, dishes, schedules, whose turn it was to call the contractor about the leak in the roof. It was messy and imperfect and sometimes exhausting. It was also theirs. 1 year after the second wedding, Lena walked into Adrian's office and found him staring at financial reports with an expression she couldn't read. Good news or bad news? She asked. Good, I think. We're officially profitable. All legitimate revenue. No illegal operations backing anything up. We actually did it. Lena moved behind his chair and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. We did it. I couldn't have without you. You know that, right? None of this would have worked if you hadn't pushed me to actually change instead of just pretending to. You would have figured it out. No, I would have found a way to rationalize keeping one foot in the old world. You're the one who made me actually leap. Lena kissed the top of his head. Then I guess it's a good thing I'm stubborn. The best thing. Adrian turned in his chair to pull her into his lap, a habit he'd developed that Lena had stopped protesting. I got offered a job today. Legitimate consulting for businesses trying to improve their security systems. Using everything I know about vulnerabilities and protection, but for legal purposes. That's amazing. Are you going to take it? I don't know. It feels strange, being asked to help instead of being seen as the threat. Get used to it. You're respectable now. Almost boring. Adrian laughed. I don't think I'll ever be boring. Probably not, but you're trying, and that's what counts. They sat there in his office, in the estate that had gone from fortress to actual home, and Lena thought about how far they'd come. From a desperate deal in a coffee shop to this, a real marriage, a real life, a real chance at happiness. It wasn't perfect. Adrian still had nightmares about the stabbing. Lena still sometimes wondered if she'd made the right choice. They fought about serious things, how involved Adrian should stay in his old world, what their future looked like, whether Lena should be doing more than just nursing school. But they also laughed. They built something together. They chose each other every single day. 6 months later, Lena graduated from nursing school. Adrian was in the front row, next to her grandmother, cheering louder than anyone when she walked across the stage. She'd been offered a position at St. Catherine's, the same hospital where her grandmother had been treated, where this whole journey had started. She took it. Her first day, she found herself in the hallway where she'd stood over a year ago, staring at numbers that had seemed impossible. A young woman stood in almost the exact same spot, holding a paper with medical costs she clearly couldn't afford, tears streaming down her face. Lena recognized that look, that desperate, drowning feeling, the sense that the world was ending and there was no way out. She walked over. "Hey, are you okay?" The woman looked up. "My mom needs surgery. I can't afford it. I don't know what to do. Lena thought about that coffee shop, that contract, that moment when she'd decided to take a chance on something that seemed insane. "Can I tell you something? A year ago, I was standing right where you are. Same situation, thought I was out of options." "What did you do?" "Something crazy, something that changed everything. It worked out, but not in any way I expected." Lena pulled out a business card. "This is a foundation that helps people with medical expenses. They helped me. Maybe they can help you too. Call them. Tell them Lena sent you." It was Adrian's foundation, one of the first legitimate ventures he'd started, using the money he'd made in his old life to help people in the same situations that had made Lena desperate enough to marry him in the first place. The woman took the card with shaking hands. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Just call them. And remember, sometimes the craziest decisions lead to the best outcomes. You never know what's waiting on the other side of impossible." That night, Lena came home to find Adrian in the kitchen, actually attempting to cook dinner. It was a disaster. Something was burning, something else was overflowing, but he looked happy, domestic in a way that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "I'm making pasta," he announced. "Or trying to. I may have overestimated my abilities." "You definitely did." Lena moved to help, salvaging what she could. "But I appreciate the effort." They cooked together, badly, and ate at the small kitchen table instead of the formal dining room. Talked about their days, Lena's first shift at the hospital, Adrian's meeting with potential security clients. Normal conversation, normal life. After dinner, they sat on the back patio, watching the sun set over the grounds that no longer needed armed guards every 50 feet. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked suddenly. "Taking that deal? Marrying a stranger? All of it?" Lena thought about it honestly. "I regret that 3 people died because of Dimitri's war. I regret that Victoria betrayed everyone. I regret the violence and the fear and all the terrible things that happened. But marrying you? No, I don't regret that. Even when it was just a contract, even when it was terrifying, I don't regret it, because it led to this." "This being what?" "Being us. Being real. Being happy in a way I didn't know I could be." She leaned against him. "What about you? Do you regret hiring me?" "Not even for a second. Best business decision I ever made, even if it destroyed my empire and rebuilt my entire life." "Your empire's still there. It's just legitimate now." "Different empire. Better one, I think. Less exciting, definitely. But I can sleep at night knowing no one's planning to stab me." Low bar, but I'll take it. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared and stars came out. Inside, the house was warm and safe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Adrian's consulting work, Lena's nursing shifts, the endless process of building a normal life from abnormal beginnings. But tonight was theirs, a moment of peace in lives that had been anything but peaceful. A choice renewed every day to stay, to build, to love, despite everything that said they shouldn't. Lena thought about the woman she'd been, desperate, drowning, willing to sign a contract with a dangerous stranger just to survive. That woman had been terrified of everything this life might bring, but she'd signed anyway. She'd taken the leap. And on the other side of that impossible decision, She'd found something she'd never expected. She'd found home, not in a place or a mansion or even in security, but in a person who'd seen her at her most desperate and offered her not just money, but eventually himself. A man who'd been broken by violence and chose to rebuild into something better. A partner who made her want to be braver than she thought possible. "I love you," Lena said into the darkness. Simple words that meant everything. Adrian's arm tightened around her. "I love you too, even though you're crazy for staying with me. Especially because I'm crazy for staying with you. We match." He laughed, and Lena felt it rumble through his chest. "We do, we really do." And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything they needed to build a life that was real, honest, and entirely their own. A life that had started with a contract born from desperation and transformed into something neither of them had known they were looking for. A life worth choosing every single day.